Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. My name is Catherine Tindall. I'm a CPA here with Dominion Enterprise Services. We're a specialty tax and accounting firm that works for financial advisors as their go-to tax strategy people. Today's episode, I have Brenna Baucum on the show, and she has over a decade of experience in the financial services industry. She's the founder of Collective Wealth Planning and specializes in serving Oregon public employees and retirees. So thanks for joining me, Brenna.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Catherine. Happy to be here. Happy to chat.
So we initially got connected, I think, over, I had watched a podcast that you had been on and then some posts that you had around developing community and, your experiences with like developing centers of influence and, building networks and that sort of thing as you've built up your practice over time, not having big institutional support like some people get. So I think it's a really great conversation because I've encountered, within my practice, I've had a couple of clients who are advisors complain about that and that it can be challenging when you're out on your own, or maybe it's you and then you have one other partner. But if you're more just geographically focused, it can get kind of isolating, not being able to connect with other advisors who are going through the same struggles of trying to, form their practices, grow their practices. And then especially if, you go online and you start encountering a lot of people that everybody's kind of got a different focus on what they're trying to do or like scale or build or, sell or that sort of thing. So it can be kind of hard to find your community in some ways. So I'd love to hear more about kind of your experience with this in your own firm and just, advice that you have for people that might be feeling a little bit, isolated as they're out there building.
Yeah, it can absolutely feel that way. And I was thinking about this, but in preparation for this conversation, I was thinking about if I had to earmark a thing that has driven a lot of the success and celebrations in my life and in my career, it's community 100%. So, and I look at that as two different things. One is the advisor community. And I think we all, as advisors, I think we benefit so much from having a community of people that we can rely on, who know our struggles, who know our triumphs, who can celebrate with us in the same way that is really hard even for our spouses to be able to do when they're outside of this. And so I had a great experience really early in my career. I think I was maybe 3 months into practicing where I went to they said, hey, can you, hold up this 15-minute timer? And I did. And they said, do you want to now serve on this planning committee to plan with us? Sure. Do you want to chair it? Sure. And in all of those yeses that I said along the way opened up communication and connection to other advisors doing great work and also thought leaders in our industry. And so I always recommend to folks, no matter where they are in their career, is plugging into one of the big organizations like either NAPFA or FPA is a great place to start. So but they are big, so it can be hard to find your way. I remember the first year I went to NorCal even, which isn't the national FPA event, it's just FPA NorCal. And I still felt like a tidal wave, right? And there were so many people, and how do you plug in and how do you find your people? So those are kind of the first two organizations, and finding ways to be relevant and to be needed, right? I guess for lack of a better term, in terms of like, somebody's got to host this conference. I can do that, right? So finding ways to really plug in and give back, I think, is an important piece of this. And that's what leads to this being reciprocal for you in the end. So certainly those two organizations, and they opened my eyes to more focused organizations that I wanted to be a part of. And for me, my passion around financial planning, what makes this such a rewarding career, is to use a life planning approach in my work with client families. And so I found out about Money Quotient. I found out about the Nasrudin Project. And both of those offer really deep communities of advisors to partner with and learn from. I would be remiss as an XY partner not to mention XY Planning Network as a potential community. That's kind of what they are known for. And so I have a number of advisors that we've developed masterminds, and we meet biweekly and those kind of things to be able to collaborate. And to your point earlier, when you were introducing this topic, I serve a pretty different demographic than most of the XY members that are in my groups. I really like working with Gen X and boomers. And, even older than that. That's my passion and who I love. And that's not the case for a lot of the people in my XY mastermind groups. And so, but I still learn quite a bit. So I think maybe the bottom line of all of this is plugging into different communities with different levels of focus, of interest. I could spend my whole life just meeting with those communities because I learn so much with them. But of course, you have to hone in. So I think the benefit we have of having done this for a while as advisors is we're able to say, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. Here's who I want to serve, and really hone in on finding that community, because chances are now it's out there. One of the things I think we can thank Michael Kitces for is his beating the drum of picking a niche, because what it's done is create all of these study groups around serving women, LGBTQIA, all of these different communities. And so it's bringing together advisors in a way that I don't think we were able to do even 10 years ago. So I'm excited to see that development.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because I get the sense, that there is a piece that goes hand in hand between the finding your community and then just being really particular about your niche. Like the more that you know who you are, it's easier to find, who's aligned enough with you that you can, learn from, and you're on the same mission, you're on the same journey. I've certainly found that in the accounting industry, surprisingly. Like there's a lot more of that. I think just professional services in general is starting to move in that direction, where people aren't needing huge institutional support in order for them to be able to make their own way and have those positive, colleague interactions where, they don't have to be in the cubicle next to you in order for you to have the benefit of having those relationships and getting some of that experience. I'd love to hear more too about your experience with how niching has played in with your interaction with building community and finding that, because I know for myself as a tax practitioner, that's made a huge difference in being able to surround myself with other tax professionals who are, aligned in the way that they want to deliver service and, how they see themselves. I'd be interested to hear more about kind of how that process developed for you. Hey there, Catherine here. Thanks for listening to the conversation. Just wanted to explain a little more about what we do. So I'm a CPA here with Dominion. We're a tax firm that works specifically for financial advisors as they're growing and scaling their practices to help them avoid tax waste, make the right calls, and grow practices that they love. So if you're interested in saving more, you can DM me on LinkedIn with the word guide, and I'll send you over our guide for financial advisors to scale tax efficiently. All my top tips to unlock six-figure savings. Thanks, and keep enjoying the show.
Yeah, and it will lead into sort of the second, I guess, advisors is one tier of the community that I described at the beginning, and the other, I would say, is literal in my community COIs and other professionals that I work with. So as you mentioned at the top of this, my niche is Oregon public employees and retirees. And so when I was thinking about, when I launched my practice, picking a niche, finding my people, I was thinking through a couple of things. One was just experience. So in my practice and in doing this for as long as I have, I've worked with a lot of Oregon public employees and retirees over time. So I'm getting down the language of the weirdness of our pension system here in Oregon, which is one pension system. Most states have several for various professions. We just have one big one, which means it's like tax code. It's all complicated and cobbled together, which you know better than anybody. And so to have that experience, and then also the experience of RMDs and QCDs and all of the strange little nuances that go with retirement planning and deep into retirement and aging planning. That was one piece that led to it. So it was just experience. The other was practical. So there are 400,000 Oregon public employees. That's a big pool of potential client families I can serve. And I'm in Salem. I'm in Salem, or the capital of Oregon. So lots of public employees live in and around here. So it was just a practical perspective from there. And then the last one was alignment. So in terms of alignment, a couple of meanings by that. One is I felt like a lot of people who are drawn to public service have a heart for service, or as in Rotary, we call it a service above self type of mindset. And so that aligns really well with my practice. The name Collective Wealth Planning, the collective part of that is meant to reflect the ways in which we are all impacted by the way that we spend our resources. That's our time, our energy, and our money, right? So that alignment, a little bit of maybe some of those public employees also have a higher calling or purpose or wanting to be a part of something greater than themselves. And then also the demographic, as I mentioned earlier, I really like working with this demographic of individuals and working through their problems. I think the transition to retirement is one of the most fascinating transitions we go through as human beings, at least in America, most of us. And so I think that bearing witness to and being a thought partner for clients through that is a really rewarding part of what we do. So those three elements, the practical, the experience, and the alignment, were the pieces that helped me say, I think this is it. It's Oregon Public Employees and those retirees, they blend those two pieces together. And what this has done from kind of that local community COI perspective is it's given me an opportunity to very easily say who I serve to people. I'm not like, like anybody. And they're kind of like, oh, well, they're nice. I've heard a lot of advisors say that. I like to work with nice people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But a CPA is not going to go, oh, I should send this person to Brenna because they're nice, right? So it's given me some really easy things for people to remember. And those COIs, I've been so pleasantly humbled by how often they have come through with great referrals. And that to me speaks very highly of their trust in me, right? And they trust me to work with their client families. I expect that they care about their clients as much as I do about mine. So it's no small feat to send somebody to a referral source, and you really want to make sure that's a good fit. So I always send a thank you note to all of my COIs every time, even if the prospect wasn't a fit for me and I ended up sending them somewhere else. I still want that person to know I appreciated them thinking about me. I'm also really intentional about scheduling lunch once a month with somebody. And because I've been in Salem for over 20 years, it's not a cold call kind of lunch. It's more like, hey, I saw you at Rotary last week and I was thinking it's been a while since we've caught up. And then we talk 10% about business and the rest about life and other things. And it's more natural, right? But it's intentional. It's natural, but it's intentional. And then the other piece that I do to try to continue to foster that and share a little bit more about who I am and what my practice is doing is around Thanksgiving, I send out a gratitude letter every year to my clients and my COIs. I pick a nonprofit organization to gift to, share a bit of information about that in the letter, and also just an opportunity to explicitly thank people for their referrals, for their support, particularly in those early years, right? It meant so much. It still does. It means so much to me every time. And I think we just live in a world that is fast paced. Everything's going so quick. And so to receive a handwritten letter, to receive that kind of stuff makes a difference. And so I'm old school in that way. Yeah, it takes more time. Yeah, but I have found over and over again, it tends to be the piece that makes it different, right? It makes you stand out, and it's the right thing to do. And it just happens to also stand out, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And it's funny that you say that because that's something we do in the firm a lot. Like we do a lot of handwritten notes, and part of that's just in my mind is, running a firm in 2024 is we have all these tools to automate things. And so it gives you the free space to leave the things that shouldn't be automated unautomated, right? It's like those human interactions, those one-to-one pieces. And what I really love in what you were saying too is the fact that because you have the specificity of the niche that you have, it takes a lot of pressure off of you, and it takes a lot of pressure off of the COI for like knowing how to interact with you and being able to communicate with you, because it just simplifies that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're meeting with them, instead of it being like, oh, I'm going to have to try to like teach them why I'm so technically competent or something like that, it's like they already know, like, oh, she works with public employee retirees. Got it. And so it just lets you spend the rest of the time just being with them as a person rather than like trying to make that specificity happen in their mind.
Yeah.
which is just so helpful. That's why I'm such a big proponent of niching, especially when you're first starting out, because it's just that specificity allows people to find you, to place you. And then on the service delivery side, it just allows you to be so much more efficient and excellent because you're not recreating the wheel for every new client that comes in. It's like you're dealing with the same situations. Like if there's a big change in the pension program, like you can write one big email and record one video and send that to everybody, right? Like it's not you having to recreate the wheel for everything.
Yeah,
but I think more particular for that overlap into the network and the COI piece of just it really simplifies it. And so it really multiplies your networking, impact and effort because people know where to place you and know, oh yeah, that's right. I have somebody who's coming in who's like a banker, like refinancing their house, had this big liquidity event or whatever. I know they're a retiree, like from the public, they've got a crazy pension that I'm seeing here. Like I know who to send them to. It's really helpful. Yeah. So for people that are interested in connecting with you, learning more about kind of what you're doing in your practice and, getting to know you a little bit better. We connected over LinkedIn, but what's the best place for people to, continue the conversation?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Facebook are the only social media things I can figure out. I'm just going to admit to being a little bit of a Luddite there. So those are probably, and LinkedIn is certainly the most professional content that I put out. And then I've got a business page for both of those. collectivewealthplanning.com is my website. And I would just echo what you said in terms of make it easy for people to work with you from a client perspective, and also make it easy for people to refer to you by having clear who you're serving, clear how much it costs to work with you. That's sometimes hard in our industry, but I think it's the brave and right thing to do is make it very easy for people to see that. So there's examples of that all over my site, and happy to chat with anybody if a continued conversation would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Brenna. I really appreciate your, wisdom that you're sharing to the audience here. And for those who are listening, you'll be able to, wherever you're encountering this, there'll be links nearby of how to get in touch with Brenna, how to get in touch with us. We always love to hear your feedback on what you thought about this episode and what you'd be interested in hearing more about. So thanks again for joining me on the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast, and hope wherever you're listening to this, you're having a lovely day. Thanks, Brenna.
Thanks, Catherine.